What is up, fight fans? I'm Jason Burgos for Sportsnaut.com, and I have the great pleasure of being joined by a true influencer in the fight game and an individual who has led the way in building back up a unique category in fight sports, and that is the founder and president of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, the one and only David Feldman. Senor Feldman, thanks so much for the time today.
What's going on, Jason, man? Thanks for the intro, bro.
So, a lot of questions, and let's go right into it. I actually had the pleasure of talking to you way back, June 2018, right after the first event, and I've been a big admirer of how far the organization has come, the reach it now has. You are closing in, about to have the numbered event, 56th numbered event, and like it's supposed to be the biggest card in the promotion's history. What would you say are some of like the biggest learning lessons, the mistakes in over the years and through and going through these events that actually in the end, while they sucked at the time, proved to be seriously beneficial in the success you guys have had since then?
I think we learned a lot about how to market this thing and how to educate people on it. And I think that, we were marketing a product that people weren't educated on at first. So they didn't get it, and we were kind of wasting our time marketing it because they weren't really getting it. Then we started really learning how to educate the fans and let them break in their perception. It's funny, I did a radio show this morning, and what we talked about was what's the biggest obstacle that you have? And my biggest obstacle is to break people's negative perception on it, right? And when I left the radio show, he's like, man, I am a fan. Like, you completely changed my perception. Just because, look, this happens a lot in life, not just here, but if you don't know about something, you talk negative about it, right? You just don't get it. And then once you allow yourself to be educated on it, then you can actually make a decision. Do you really like it or don't you really like it? And I think most of the people that allow themselves to understand what this is really, really like it.
One of the biggest achievements for the promotion, at least I feel, is the fact that I believe now it's up to 25 states that are now legalizing bare knuckle boxing, which is a huge difference from when this all started. Which it's amazing considering how the sport was viewed. You just talked about changing perceptions and stuff like that. How hard was like that process at first to go through? Gets different states, try to get the events in those states. Like, at what point do you feel like it maybe turned a corner and things started to get a lot easier, and that perception change of people finally getting it and wanting it in their state? And it is a place like New York City and LA and Chicago, are those maybe still the big picture goals eventually for BKFC?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what happened was we just this August, actually, we just got voted in for unified rules for bare knuckle fighting in the United States from the Association of Boxing Commissioners. That's key for people that don't really know what that means. That's like the United States government telling the local state government, look, you're with us now. Like, this is for everybody now. And that's what they did. And when they did that, that made a lot of the commissions were, definitely entertaining it. They just weren't sure if they wanted to make the move and have any more negative perception on them because they didn't know what it was, right? And then this gave them the opportunity to say, look, I'm backed by this whole entire organization now, so let me do it. And I think when that happened, the phone just started ringing in. I can't wait in the next really just 30 days, but the next 90 days to announce some of the states that are going to open up. Some major states, some of them that you mentioned, just some really big marquee, I think, turning point states for us are about to open up. And I think just by doing the right thing, right, we have, I think, is one of the best medical staffs in the entire world, really, that works for us. And we take that very, very seriously, not just taking care of the fighters, but collecting the data and analyzing everything and making the changes necessary. And I think that really makes a lot of commissions feel comfortable. And I think that was a big turning point as well. But I really think the big turning point was getting voted into unified rules and just getting everybody just a warmer feeling about this thing.
I remember when we first talked, one of the lasting memories, and it was what I had in the headline when I was at Shirt Dog, was a fan told you that it helped watching BKFC helped their erectile dysfunction. And like, what would you say that now that's the positive? What would you say was like the common negative that people didn't get in commissions, in fight fans? Is it just this idea, oh, it's bare knuckle, it's more dangerous? Was that like, what was the constant things you had to hit to get people to go, okay,
The
it's not what you think?
same exact thing. Just way too many injuries, way too brutal. People that didn't allow themselves to be educated again. And now the data shows that we have less concussive and subconcussive damage. We have less facial fractures, less even hand breaks. People don't even get that. We have less hand breaks than boxing or mixed martial arts. The only thing we have more of is lacerations. We don't run from that. We don't hide from that. We are a little bit of a bloody sport, and we run towards that because I'd rather my fighters have cuts on their face than swelling on their brain, right? That's what I'd rather them have, and I think that's what's happening here. I don't. I always say this to Jason. Listen, anytime you get two men or women in a ring or cage or whatever the fighting platform may be, and their goal is to knock someone's head off, it's not safe. I mean, it's not safe, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we're safe or we're safer. We're just no more dangerous than anything else out there. And I think that we have the ability to prove that now with our data, and I think that takes us a long way.
Going to like the idea of like changing perception too, and that since the beginning, MMA veterans have always kind of been coincided with BKFC. I remember talking to Chris Lytle in those early days because he was one of the first notable stuff like that. But it seems even more so. The BKFC 56 coming up, the two top fights are for UFC veterans, big star MMA veterans, like and the leaning towards those fighters because it just seems like they are better built for this kind of sport. Has that also been because I'm sure the assumption for a lot of people would have been, oh, it's bare knuckle boxing, so they're gonna get boxing stars and they're gonna get well known boxers. Has that also been a weird thing, like trying to get established boxers to get involved? This even their perception, even though it's a similar sport, like, oh no, I can't do that. Like, has that been a weird thing too?
Yeah, I think because MMA guys are used to getting hit with like the shin, the elbow, the
Yeah,
knee,
yeah,
harder objects, right? Like harder objects than the glove. And not that they're getting hit harder, but they're getting hit with harder objects. So in bare knuckle fighting, what a lot of people don't realize is it's not like you get cracked and you're like, ooh, I feel like I'm wounded. It's like you get cracked and you're like, ah, that hurt, right? Like that hurt, or that little hit hurt, or that little hit hurt. But it wasn't like the big blunt force that you're going to get with the glove on. Look, when you're fighting with a bare knuckle, it's here. When you're fighting with a glove, it's that much wider, right, and
yeah.
that much bigger. So it's that much more of a force that's going to hit you with. But I think that now I'm getting reached out to by a lot of boxers right now. I think
Mm.
um, probably like February. I think we're going to go on a big signing spree. It's mid January to February. We're locking up a humongous funding round for us right now with a major investor that's going to really turn the corner for us again. Another turning point for us, but that's going to allow us to get the bigger names. So the boxers want a little more money than these MMA guys do. Although we're paying some of these top guys top dollar, but the boxers, in the big fights can make more than the MMA guys have been used to um, have been used to making, and now, we're going to give them an opportunity to cross over to bare knuckle, and I think they're gonna. I think it's going to be an interesting year.
And that was something I was thinking about asking about, and since you brought it up, I'll go there. We just saw with PFL that they minority stake was sold to a company controlled by the Saudi PIF. They got investment there. Saudis have had a lot of investment, in a lot of Western sports. Talked to the guy who's running Baseball United, and he talked to a lot of these royal families in the Middle East. Is that something like that you mentioned that you need more investment? Is that something you'd be open to? Not just maybe the Saudi PIF, but just foreign investment, and that's the thing that really is going to think that's what stopped BKFC from really being even a
Yeah,
notable.
I'm actually heading in mid-December to the Middle East. I have a bunch of meetings set up with different countries and different people out there. So I'm very excited to come back from there because I really think we're going to get something done there. I have a ton of investment, a ton of guys that want to invest into the company. But my big thing about taking on investment is I'm not just looking for money. I want the right strategic investor behind it. Like
Mm.
money can be good if they have like money that they don't even care about, right? Then I don't need the big strategic thing behind it because it won't matter. But if I'm going to get money from the United States and things like that from these different funds, which we're talking to everybody, it's just got to be strategic for us. So that way we don't have to keep going back to the drawing board. But we're at a really great spot right now. We have ton of interest in what we're doing and a ton of interest from institutional investors now. So we're real happy about that.
Well, you have expanded to the brand to Asia, bare knuckle, the Thai fights recently and stuff like that. What would you say is like the overall goal for that sort of expansion? Do you see something in the research where it's like, yeah, this area, South Pacific, these parts of the world, South Asia, it's like just a market that's perfect for this kind of product?
Yeah, I think that, you know. we're probably going to test the waters one more time before we can make a decision on that, whether that's it or not. Listen, we got ton of interest in that. I mean, I think we got 5.4 million. No, we didn't. We got 4.6 million live views on that. So
Wow.
that was incredible for us. But
Yeah.
it didn't translate into dollars, right? And that's the
Mm.
thing. Like, there is times where we put it out there and it doesn't have to make sense financially, and then there's times where it does have to make sense financially. So we're going to balance that out, and we're going to figure out if it works. If it works, we're definitely going to keep going with it, and if it doesn't, obviously we'll just move on to another territory.
Speaking of strategic movements and decisions, going back to PFL, we just had this PFL Bellator merger. That since you're doing kind of Thai fights, bare knuckle, is a strategic maybe partnership with something like a one championship, would that all be interesting? I mean, they have that set market in Asia, they know the market, they do multiple sports. You have several MMA fighters that maybe could be persuaded to compete there in a co-op thing. Would that be at all of interest for you, or not really? That's just something different. We're not looking for that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I never say no because you never know what can work. I take meetings all the time. I talk to people all the time. Anything's possible, but I don't think so. I think we're going to be developing this on our own. We're going to bring in the right people, and we're just really inches away from really just exploding this thing. And it's just a matter of really just a little bit more time. But we're right there. I mean, look, we're in talks with. I mean, we grew this thing from nothing. We bootstrapped this
Yeah.
thing, grew it on our
Yeah.
own in 5.5 years to being not the most talked about, but one of the most talked about combat sports promotions in the world. And I think we did a hell of a thing there. And we're just going to keep pushing ourselves.
And you nailed it in so many ways, because you've done so much, and the company's done so much. So, like, what are the next big goals for BKFC? You mentioned that this is investment, and that's going to be a game changer. Is it that? Is it just being able to be a bigger player in the fight sports free agent market, and just cultivate an even bigger roster with bigger names? Is it like maybe broadening a different kind of broadcast partner, and maybe aiming for something like CW Network, because they're trying to get a lot of sports products, or something like that? Like, what's the next big mountain to climb for BKFC? That there's a lot of mountains that have already been climbed.
Yeah, 100%. It's a television slash OTT platform deal without a
Mm.
doubt. We're in talks with some major players right now, in that aspect, and we expect to close something out here in the next 30 to 60 days. But that's definitely the next uh, road that we have to cross. We have to cross that road in order to widen this. We're also going to make some changes on our app, and we're updating our app. We're actually going to get a new partner in here. But the main thing about that is we're going to do a lot of free content and not so much paid. And we're going to figure out different ways of monetizing that, because I just know that when we talk about change of perception, once I change perception and then people watch it, they love it. Like, there's nothing else out there like it. It's not like
Yeah.
another league. It's a whole nother lane. And we built that, and it's awesome. And I just want more and more people to see it, because once they see it, they become repeat customers. So that's kind of the really the goal for 2024.
The main event of BKFC 56 will feature this King of Violence title being on the line, which I love. I love that name. It's fantastic. It just fits the company so perfectly. However, a guy like Dave Mundell wasn't thrilled with the belt being created. There's been a lot of people that have complained, fighters or fans, for like the BMF title in the UFC and stuff like that. Although I love that title too. What made you and the organization decide, yeah, let's create this belt? And are there any specific goals in mind to kind of separate it from the BMF title and those kind of titles, and make it different? And honestly, this seems like a belt that fits your promotion more than, say, UFC.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree there. Look, although we have data that says it's not as dangerous and blah blah blah, everything else that we have, make no mistake about it, it's a violent sport. These guys are getting cut. There's a lot of blood in this sport. So we created the King of Violence. I mean, we were on a TV show, and they kind of said, "Hey, this is a real. You got two of the most violent guys around." So we created the King of Violence. I don't know if we're going to defend it. I don't know, what's going to happen with it. I think people are excited about it. I think some people will be naysayers about it, but they'll be naysayers about everything. Think some guys in my promotion, I get that they wanted the big fight, and they're going to get a big fight. But at the end of the day, is whatever brings more eyes on this promotion, that's what we have to do. And we have to have fun. Like, we have to have
Yeah.
a little fun with it. It's
Yeah.
fun. Like, it's not just another weight division championship. It's a little bit of fun, and it allows people to talk good and bad about it, right? But it allows people to talk about it, and I think that's kind of why we did it. And like I said, we'll get through this event here on Saturday. We're anticipating a sellout crowd, so it should be an amazing event for us, and then we'll see where we go with the King of Violence from there.
You recently mentioned how Luke Rockhold was not built for BKFC. Probably won't be back. Paige Van Zandt didn't maybe work out quite like to the level maybe the promotion had hoped. But flip side, Mike Perry's been fantastic. Ben Rothwell's another one who looks like he can have a. He might be even far bigger star in BKFC than the UFC. Since you joined, everything doesn't go perfectly, and when it comes to bringing in fighters, has there been ones that, if it's not them, that man, they didn't quite work out like expected? And are there any fighters that, wow, I did not expect them to be as valuable and important to the promotions I thought they would be?
I mean, there certainly is. Like Luke Rockhold, take nothing away from him, and I don't want to misconception about what I said. I said Luke Rockhold is one of the best MMA fighters ever. Like that's his game. His game just wasn't bare knuckle. That's what the point I was getting across. So he wasn't a mistake for me. There was a lot of hoopla around that. A lot of people wanting to see that fight with him and Mike Perry. So he certainly wasn't a mistake for me. All I said is that this sport isn't for him, and it's not. And he said it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I get that. So I wouldn't say I made a mistake with him. I don't know really who I really made a mistake with. Some guys I might have paid a little too much for, but I don't think I really made a mistake with any of these guys. But I think Ben Rothwell was a big plus for us. I think he's adapting to this, and I think people are really excited to see him. So I think he was a really good win for us. So I'd probably say Ben Rothwell is probably a really good win for us.
Was there ever any big names that BKFC ever came close to signing and like a deal just couldn't get past the finish line? A lot of people probably forget, again, because you've done so much, the promotion has done so much. Getting Poli Malignaggi was like a big deal. That was a major thing when it happened. Like, was there ever a big boxer, MMA fighter that, oh, we were in deep talks, it was going well, and it just didn't happen? Maybe revisit one day, but that could have been a big one.
I mean, we were talking to a lot of them. Look, we were in talks with every single free agent out there, really. I mean, everyone. I can't remember every single name right now, but I'm telling you, like, everyone that came out, we made them an offer if they made sense for us, right? Like, not every big free agent makes sense for us. It's the right free agent that I think makes sense for us. But we made offers to everyone. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but there was one I was regretting not getting, but I can't remember who it was. But I put a bid in for him, and I was like, man, this is going to be great. And then he went and signed. I think he signed back with the UFC. Can't remember who it was, man. Sorry, man. I got so many things I just can't remember who it was, but I do remember that I was like, man, I really wanted this guy. But look, there's going to be times. There's 4 or 5 promotions out there bidding for the same guy right now, so we're gonna always be in that mix. And it just depends if we can give them a little something extra. Is it whether it be money, whether it be notoriety, right? Because I think when a lot of people cross over to BKFC, people go, wow, they're fighting bare knuckle.
Yeah.
And people, talk about it a little bit more than if they just change promotion. So, I think it benefits some of the fighters, not just financially, but in other avenues to come over to BKFC.